Just the media, they're all full of lies. What do you know a little bit, all hoping you die. Live free or die. Live free or die. Live free or die. Live free or die. What the hell is that? Votes just the same, nothing but a crap. They tell you what to think, they control what you see. Why don't you think and heard it on TV? I said live free or die. Live free or die. Live free or die. Live free or die.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Hardfire TV on Brooklyn Free Speech Cable. My name is Cameron Weber. I'm the director, I'm the producer and host of Hardfire. Our director is behind the curtain, and I'm an economist and a historian. This is our second program on crony capitalism. Crony capitalism is when politicians game the system to give special treatment under law and tax breaks to their political supporters. This makes everyone worse off, except, of course, the crony capitalists and politicians themselves. And our first, this is our second edition of discussing crony capitalism with Derek Sacerdote. Derek, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
I heard you did research for this one. Wow.
Yeah, I prepped.
And we're going to talk about some New York crony capitalism in New York. Last time we talked about crony capitalism and the COVID era, right? Mm-hmm. All those no bid contracts and things like that. I guess, half of the COVID relief money hasn't even been spent yet. So, inflation isn't going anywhere anytime soon.
That's why those trucks are still around.
Yeah, the trucks. Raise your arm for the
COVID testing trucks.
Free. Everything's free.
Well, I was
parking the ice cream truck.
Testing truck, and was getting a parking ticket.
Oh boy!
And I was curious because, a lot of people probably feel like, oh, these trucks are probably sent by the city, and then it occurred to me, wait a minute, maybe they're not sent by the city. I see it has out-of-state plates on that truck.
Oh no, that's another example of crony capitalism.
This is not a city service. This is a company that's getting funded for this.
Yeah, it gets a grant.
Yes.
It's part of the city government budget, the state government budget. It comes from the federal government printing money, fiscal transfers, and then it goes to these non-for-profit organizations that support the state. And
non-for-profit.
Not for profit, whose directors make beaucoup dollars and they donate to the political campaigns, and that's an example of crony capitalism. The social services that aren't really supposed to work. The home. Does the city really want homeless or doesn't want homelessness, so that they can have a racket with homeless shelters?
You want a certain amount of baseline of homelessness, like a manageable level. Where you can showcase how well you're handling it.
And give crony capitalist contracts to the not-for-profit organizations that provide the shelters and the mental health services. Does anyone ever get cured from the state mental health?
No, because it's a process. There's no cure. There's no cure for mental health. Process.
Yeah, so those are examples of crony capitalism, social service programs that don't work, and then not-for-profit organizations that don't have to pay taxes. Their leadership makes lots of high salaries, $300, $400, $500, up to $1 million, $1.5 million a year salaries for the not-for-profits, which go to the political campaigns. Would you call that crony capitalism?
I think that would count.
Yeah. So let's go back to last time we said that pay to play was a good way to look at crony capitalism, and our current governor gave a contract to one of our campaign contributors gave a contract for COVID test kits that cost twice the market rate. The COVID test kits you get at the trucks on the street next to the ice for free test kits that cost twice as much as. Right. So, but we call that pay to play, but isn't that being too generous? Don't the corporations write the rules more or less under crony capitalism? Let's say that I'm going to build a computer chip factory. I promise you 1,000 jobs to build a computer factory, and Alabama promises me $1 billion, and then Arizona promises me $1.1 billion. Then I go to New York and I say, how much can I get from you? You know, isn't that the way the game's played?
Yeah.
The beggar thy neighbor, race to the bottom.
So you feel like should be a stronger term than pay to play?
Yeah, crony capitalism. I don't know. Pay to play
that highlights the fact that maybe the corporations are in control and the states are more like they're the ones who are playing.
That's a you know a good question that the left and right argue over whether or not. Well, Karl Marx called this the state the executive committee of the bourgeoisie, right? Then does the capitalists bidding for them. And in American democracy, we're calling that crony capitalism because you need to raise so much money for campaigning, and the way you do that is to give corporations tax breaks. So I pay to play. I don't know what else.
It's hard to say who's the player and who's doing and who's being played. It's very difficult.
Well, who's being played is everyone who's not.
Everyone who's not part of that duopoly. Yes.
Yeah, the elitism that perpetuates this elite ruling class and crowds out the people who aren't part of that elite. And that's British utilitarianism. That's the whole thing. That's socialism. Is you have a small group of people who believe they know what's best for everybody, and then they implement those things. And
it impacts. I would say small business or entrepreneurs.
Exactly.
Like if I want to start my own little COVID testing business, I'm up against.
They'll throw you in jail in a heartbeat. Are you kidding? But so Derek, you're an entrepreneur, and I know.
Unfortunately, yes.
Definitely an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And one of the things you do is off-grid electricity, and you've been doing that for a long time. Solar panels.
Yes.
And you're actually off-grid or have
off-grid electricity in general, off-grid power and homemade energy in general.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going off-grid.
Off-grid completely. I've been doing it a while.
Yeah.
The most lucrative way to do it is to sell your power back to the grid.
That's what I want to talk about.
Yeah. The reason being why that's more lucrative is because if you don't do that, if you try and use your own power, you have to find a way to store it from daylight to night. Yeah. And storage technology really is not that good.
Yeah.
So you really lose a lot when you try to save the energy. You get much more power when you simply sell it as it is produced.
Right. But I think you're a victim of the crony capitalists, and this is why, because let's say that your engineering prowess. You've been doing this 10, 15 years, solar panels. You're very good at it. You're very good, better than your neighbors and all of that. Some of your neighbors may want to have you generate, Derek, enough solar electricity for your whole block, right? You can't sell that electricity directly to your neighbors, can you?
Not legally, no.
Not legally. That's what I'm saying. You have to sell it back to the monopoly.
Right. And to sell it to the grid is also complicated because you can't.
I say the monopoly.
You can just sell the power to the grid.
Yeah,
it's going to be an improved installer.
Yeah, exactly. Labor union stuff.
Yeah,
it's like a mafia.
Yeah,
the cable companies and electrical companies are all big, powerful campaign contributors, saddling us with obsolete equipment. And you, Derek, the entrepreneur, can't sell your stuff to your neighbor without doing it illegally, because you have to sell it back to the crony capitalist institution.
Power grid, yeah.
Power grid.
You hear the story about the woman who bought some kind of an electric car,
Okay.
and thinking she was going to save all this money. And the week that she bought the car, whatever state, I think it was a southern state, they passed a surcharge to make up for the gasoline tax that the person's not going to be paying.
Yeah. I've noticed that. Oh yeah. They're doing that now, right?
You circumvented your rightful amount of tax for owning a car.
Okay, right. And I think you just did a very good example. Another example of what crony capitalism is, this whole electric car thing, is where people just look at you have this, what's seen and what is unseen. People say, look, I've got a very nice shiny new electric car. I'm going green. I'm politically correct. But they don't know that it takes how many, 100 tons of rare earth to build one battery. And then where does the electricity come to run the electric cars? From oil and gas.
Yeah, unfortunately, for the most part, majority of power still comes from fossil fuel. Although I think we make too much of that, in the sense that we have the infrastructure for electric cars, then that will allow us to then gradually transfer over to greener sources. Usually,
why can't that be done without tax breaks? Why does the state?
Yeah, of course. You don't need tax breaks, because solar power is a motivation in of itself.
Exactly. So people want to do that.
Yeah.
Already, because they're concerned. Why do you need tax breaks? And it all goes back to campaign donations.
And the same thing for the oil and gas companies who don't want solar power to replace them for charging electric cars. They want to find a way to still make their their profit, even though we're transitioning away from that fuel source.
Well, right, and then so the Democrats are clean and green, and the Republicans are oil and gas, and then and then the majority of Americans who are neither are kind of stuck in the middle, so to speak.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, you're paying somebody one way or the other, or both.
The federal government debt is the highest it's been since World War II, more than $100,000 per person, and unfunded liabilities are greater than $300,000. So all of this special interest cronyism has a price.
Yeah, people we're not really aware of that, because it's probably hidden from most people. It's money we don't think of paying off ever, so people are used to having debt.
Well, exactly. And yeah, so right, both Republicans and Democrats are guilty of it. And I guess the good news is that more and more people are becoming independent.
Yeah,
either aligning with Democrats or Republicans. So, as they say, we're a new nation.
They are independent, but they often seem to vote for Democrat or Republican anyway. Even in the end, and
yeah, you can.
They're independent until the actual election.
Well, that's because most people's votes don't matter, and that's just called rational.
Yeah, it's like they're independent, meaning that they vote, that they make up their mind really late, or they don't vote. That's how they.
So
that's how it manifests itself.
So what we're trying to do is show how crony capitalism is so rampant in New York, and part of that, which means that everyone has to pay more taxes in New York. Regulations are harder to do business. And we did a TV, you and I did a show called Why People Want to Leave New York.
This might be another reason.
Well, yeah, because of the prices and the taxes and the difficulty of doing business. And that's all part of crony capitalism as well. Yeah, somebody has to pay to fix the streets, I guess. So yeah, let's move on to the current poster child, who I call them the poster child for crony capitalism, current governor of New York. They did the $850 million Buffalo Bills stadium deal.
Mm.
Who owns the Buffalo Bills anyway?
I have no idea.
I'm sure they're well intentioned and very much like the $850 million taxpayer funded stadium. And you enjoy it.
I'm sure that the choice of the location was purely based on geography.
Oh, Albany, where is it? I don't know.
Well,
Buffalo. Oh, Buffalo. Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Billions.
yeah, I'm sure it's the climate, the geography makes it perfect for anything you want to do.
Right. So
Anybody would naturally want to go to Buffalo.
people keep trying to develop places that shouldn't be developed or would have been developed naturally
Anymore. Yeah.
because
past that point.
Because all the deals don't work. So the latest one is the Micron project.
Yes, I got a quote. I was reading about that. I got a quote. Let's see if I can find the quote.
All right, so we're talking about the Micron deal, where we're creating a computer processing chip upstate New York in the middle of nowhere, out of thin air, crony capitalism. And Derek, you had a quote on that, Micron?
Yeah, this was Chuck Schumer. Said the region has
he's a baseball player. He's a football player.
He's a football player.
Yeah, Chuck Schumer. Oh, he's a politician. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he's a politician.
Okay.
He said the region has 4 key ingredients that make it attractive for U.S. semiconductor manufacturers: access to plenty of water, power, space, and the majority leader of the U.S. Senate. Did he say the quiet part out loud?
That was the true quote? Yeah, well, that's pretty much an example of crony capitalism right there.
Seems so, yeah.
Well, at least we're
he accidentally said what he meant.
Is that a real quote, or is that a
that was from the article? I'll tell you the article from
an article. Yeah, okay.
It's from an article. What article was that?
It wasn't a cut and paste YouTube job like they do with.
No. It was an article. CNBC. Micron to spend up to $100 billion to build a computer factory.
Yeah.
Chip factory in New York. This was published October 4th of this year.
Yeah. Let's cover Micron details here. Come back on the screen.
$100 billion over the next 2 decades.
Yeah. Right. So you see, here's a picture of the Micron project. Beautiful, isn't it? Looks like something out of the Soviet Union, doesn't it?
I can't see it. It looks like one of those pharmaceutical factories that are all throughout New Jersey.
Only 10 times as big.
Yeah. Nice grassy landscaping all around it. Campus.
Does anybody even live there? Okay. Anyway, it's like the Soviet Union, a worker's paradise.
Yeah.
It's nobody's there. Build it and it becomes a worker's paradise.
Well, I'm sure they're going to have cafes and dormitories and probably other facilities that people enjoy having part of their day. A gym, maybe. I'm sure they have lots of nice things that make people want to plot to work there.
Right, it's a worker's paradise, and
maybe high pay in the beginning. Yeah.
At the beginning, Micron gets 5.5 billion in tax breaks. They're supposed to hire 9,000 people. The whole thing is supposed to last 30 years to 2055. So this will be the largest chip semiconductor manufacturing plant in the United States. So $5.5 billion tax breaks, 9,000 people. That means each job creation, which is just another example of crony capitalism, costs $600,000. So that the taxpayer is paying $600,000 per person employed by this for-profit organization.
And what do you suppose the average salary is going to be?
Right. So the average salary, let's say 100,000, but it costs 6 times as much.
Yeah, there's a little gap. There's a little gap in
right.
Unaccounted for.
The gap is much more evident when you look at in the private sector You don't have to pay to create jobs. The job,
Really?
the job,
Jobs just create themselves, huh?
an employer looks for someone to hire to add value to what the employer is doing, and the employee creates value and earns that value because the employer makes a profit. And that's how you make profits and pay taxes to allow the crony capital.
So it's almost like the government has no role in that.
Well, there's a role in the rule of law, treating equally under the rule of law, which is the opposite of crony capitalism, which
Pretty
is
much. Yeah.
a common theme in these shows that we do, is, you know, the ideal of equal treatment under the law.
I know. I mean, it sounds good on the surface of it, but it's more controversial when you get into the application. Like, equal treatment under the law in every situation. I mean, come on.
Oh, okay. And then back to the Micron case. So this is something from The Economist magazine. So you'll see, right? So you'll see they start planning this crony thing, let's say around 2020, 2021. You'll see that the value of the semiconductor industry is growing during this period when the Micron is doing their crony thing. And by the way, the Inflation Reduction Act, or whatever the previous one, are subsidizing, you know, at the federal government level, $60 billion in tax breaks for these Micron. So the Micron project over and over again. But you'll see that so while they're planning it, the value of the computer industry is going up, and then then they announce it. When you said October 2022, they announced the Micron deal, and The Economist magazine, this thing comes out the same week as they announced the Micron deal, and you can see the crash of the value of semiconductor factories. So you know, what a great investment that was.
We're already committed as a state. You know, we're committed to that.
Exactly. Exactly. So you know, back to the Micron. Another story. Right. So on the Micron case, let me ask you, Derek, won't the whole thing be obsolete by the time it's finished?
Yeah, the idea of 30 years sounds like a long time. Who knows if we're going to be using chips? I mean,
Exactly.
I mean, the whole concept seems, you know, at the rate of technological progress, it seems very archaic to expect that a big plant like this would be necessary.
It's just like the Soviet Union. Like, we didn't learn anything from the Soviet Union. And isn't private business with a profit incentive better able to react to changes better than some grandiose scheme? Obviously, we already answered that.
Yeah, I mean, well, I guess we have to learn these lessons ourselves. We all have to learn how to fail ourselves.
Yeah, every generation.
Yeah, every generation, every society has to relearn the same lesson.
Well, I'm glad to have a chance to talk about it, because I personally don't like crony capitalism and unequal treatment under the rule of law in this American experiment, Republican experiment, Democrat, or, you know.
It's not your favorite thing.
Crony capitalism, yeah, it's the thin edge of just societal decay when you start giving tax breaks to you know, under the Buffalo Billions. I think we just have a couple of minutes left, but if you know, Buffalo Bills, Buffalo Billions, and then the Micron, and here's under Buffalo Billions, what's his name? Who's the richest man in the world? He got.
Well, yeah. Elon's number 2 now.
Oh, is he number 2? So he got almost $900 million in tax breaks under the Buffalo Billions project, and then that became obsolete, and that got written down. You know, so the number 2 richest person in the world is another poster child for crony capitalism. Sorry to burst people's bubbles there.
Who's that?
Who's the owner of Tesla? He's
No, that's Elon. Yeah.
Yeah, he got something like $5 billion in green subsidies for his car plant. All right. So why do if these things are bankrupt and fishy, why does crony capitalist projects continue?
I guess because it benefits those who participate.
So has democracy failed when these things just keep going on and on and on, or what?
Well, I think it's for those of us in the democracy who are not involved in it, it's our responsibility to be aware.
Yeah, that's right. That's what we're doing as a form
To
of
be aware.
journalism.
It's not. I mean, it's not really anyone's job to necessarily forbid these deals, but to be aware of them, and if if we're not tacitly accepting it, to vote accordingly, to be
Yeah.
aware, and to raise these issues during campaigns.
Well, good. So thank you, Derek, again for your insights and wisdom. Thank you, everyone, for watching Hardfire TV, our second edition on crony capitalism. We'll see you next time on Hardfire. By the way, this is our 60th show, Derek.
Wow.
Yeah.
Not our 60th show.
No, this is probably our 10th, 15th, something.
Something like maybe 20.
Yeah.
Quite a few.
But why people are leaving New York is a very popular one. So if you would like to see Derek and I discuss why people are leaving New York and tie it in with this crony capitalist one, please do. You can see all of our Hardfire TV on YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.